Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast here to tell you about Michelob Ultra Courtside. It's getting fans closer to the NBA with a chance to win prizes like courtside seats, a trip to All-Star Weekend, and much more. Check it out at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Superior Access, Courtside 24-25 sweepstakes, no purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 and up. Begins on October 1st, 2024, ends July 1st, 2025. Multiple entry periods. Visit MichelobUltra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, and official rules. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
Hey, Giants fans, this is Chris Franklin from NJ Advanced Media, and welcome to Talk is Cheap podcast, the show where we discuss all things related to the New York Giants. Before we begin, I wanted to remind you that you can read our content on NJ.com/Giants and make sure to bookmark that to get the latest Giants news and analysis. Well, the Tommy DeVito era didn't get off to a great start as the Giants fell to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home again, which could be a good thing depending if you're looking for a draft for the future, or you could be looking as saying, you know what, maybe it's time to get a new regime in here. But we're gonna get more into it right now with Giants beat reporter Darryl Slater. Darryl, how are you doing today?
What's going on, Chris? Yeah, I'm doing a lot better than Brian Daboll's doing. And so that is that's a low bar to clear at this point.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I want to start with him as well too, because we saw the quotes that were coming out of the locker room in terms of how it basically said it almost in a way threw him under the bus, saying this is the reason why they weren't coming out and playing sharp. Yeah, when it came with Malik Neighbors' statements and everything else like that. Do, whatever slim hopes he had of keeping his job because of the disastrous season, do you think it finally puts the nail in his coffin that he's going to be done after this year?
I think he's toast. Yeah, I think it looks like it. I mean, it looks like it. I don't even think you don't have to think that. I mean, so they lose 30-7. They get their doors blown off from the get go, 23-0 in the first half. This is after their bye week, came after the just pathetic loss in Munich to the Panthers. So it has been just an insane and brutal 2 weeks for the Giants, who obviously bench Daniel Jones, put him in bubble wrap, then grant his request for a release. And the locker room was shocked and confused by Daboll going with Tommy DeVito over Drew Lock. Would it have made a difference yesterday? I don't know. I mean, the DeVito thing was a risk, and Dable had to know that. But then, in the locker room after the game, you hear Jermaine Illuminor, the veteran right tackle, saying, "Guys, we're not giving 100%." You hear Malik Neighbors saying, the star rookie receiver, of course, saying that the issues on offense and the issues with himself not getting involved early were not stemming from the quarterback. And obviously, he said, "Go ask Dable," and
Yeah.
basically that's saying it's play calling. You hear guys like Darius Slayton and Brian Burns giving a pretty much non-endorsements or not ringing endorsements to the confidence or lack thereof, to the confidence they have in this coaching staff, in which all is are signs of a locker room that has clearly tuned out the coach. No matter what they're going to say, you heard Dexter Lawrence and Malik Neighbors both call the Giants play soft. I mean, across the board, so many instances after this game of just things that are damning indictments and terrible signs uh, for, and not even signs or optics, but the terrible reality for a hot seat head coach like Brian Daboll, who's 2-9, 6 straight losses. They haven't led in any of those 6 games. They're 0-6 at home. They started 2-8 last year. You know what? It's a drama-filled 6-11 year that was. And so I think the question now is really twofold. Will John Mara indeed make a change during the season? He said definitively that he would not. And that whole vote of confidence thing was so foolish of him to do. Um, and if Dable does get fired, will Joe Shane be fired with him after the season? I mean, you look at the egg on his face that Joe Shane has with not just Saquon Barkley, but what Xavier McKinney's doing in Green Bay and all of Shane's failures with the roster building process. Maybe they just go with a clean slate and let the new GM pick and the new coach mold the new quarterback, whether that's Shador Sanders or Cam Ward or someone else. So yeah, it's a bad situation across the board for the Giants. The only thing that fans who I guess fans, if fans don't care who's the coach or the GM, then you want this team to lose, lose, lose. And if that's going to happen, then these guys are probably getting fired, or Daboll's at least getting fired. But it would mean a higher draft pick, and the Giants are second right now. The Jags are 2-9 as well as the Giants, and then the Raiders at 2-9, who are number 3. By the way, the Raiders might wind up with Daniel Jones, and if he leads them to wins, that would help the Giants. So that's kind of an odd way of that turning about. But the Giants are second in the draft order right now, so that covers pretty much where they're at right now.
Yeah, and when you look at a head coach who's supposed to be fighting for his job, and the last thing you want to see at least the guys playing sharp or playing for that guy. When you got guys like Jermaine Illuminor saying that he doesn't think everybody's giving their 100%, yeah, you've lost the team. There's no way you can come back from that. And listen, I know there's some talk about people like, oh well, Dable's a good coach, and yeah, he just needs a better GM to give him pieces to work with or what have you. When your offense is not able, when you're showing that you aren't able to help develop a quarterback like Daniel Jones, when you were having issues moving things around and not getting the most out of Malik Neighbors, and you say, oh well, he was hurt for a couple of games, right? Nah, there's no excuse. You come out flat again. Everybody knows you have to keep doing this. You come out flat with that first half performance, and it looked like crap, to be honest with you. It did that one too. I'm just going down. I'm just going down the stats. I'm looking right now. 5 of 11 third downs against the Tampa Bay, who was pretty much shorthanded, and you couldn't stop him at all. I know Baker Mayfield's having a good year for the Buccaneers, but he's not really doing good on that one. You're averaging 4.4 yards per game. Most of that came in garbage time. A lot of these stats, even DeVito's 109 yards throwing, a lot of that came in garbage time when the game was pretty much decided already. And for a guy who was trying to salvage whatever he could, it's not a good look at all. Even if I'm looking at, like, say, Dable wants to go, the Giants let him go, and somebody wants to hire him later on, like, or look at him that I'm not trusting him right now. I mean, you had a good run in Buffalo, but now you have to look and wonder, was it more of it Josh Allen helped him out as vice versa? So yeah, not pretty right now at all in terms of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it all kind of traces to, do you trust this GM and this quarterback, or this coach rather, to be able to pick and mold the next quarterback? Now, picking the right quarterback's kind of a crapshoot, right? I mean, I think most people look at Shooter Sanders and Cam Ward and they say, or most draft analysts, that these are similar prospects in terms of, and neither is his not. I think neither is nearly as good as the top 3 guys who went this year. So that's a problem for a quarterback needy team. They look at these guys as the JJ McCarthy level prospects. So a tier down from Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams and Drake May. And so, do you trust the GM in Shane to pick the right guy if he has this choice of the 2, Sanders and Ward, with those 2 being the clear top guys at this point, and not even elite prospects? Um, and do you trust Brian Daboll to correctly mold this quarterback? One thing to consider here, I think, is, would the Bears are probably going to fire their coach after they're letting this regime, and this coach especially with the Bears, um, have their last thing that they do be drafting a quarterback number 1 overall. I think perhaps it makes more sense to go into the quarterback's first year, a high draft pick rookie quarterback, with a new head coach, and everyone's on the same timeline, and maybe even a new GM. Um, that way, everyone's on the same timeline, and you're not yanking the rug out from under a young quarterback, which is what they did Daniel Jones's first year. Now, that's not why Daniel Jones was bad. He was just bad because he was. Now, yes, they didn't put enough around him, whatever. Lack of continuity early on. But at Brian Daboll's introductory press conference, Jim Mara even said, "Look, we've handed Daniel Jones way too much upheaval, not enough continuity in his first, really at that point, was 3 years. He had gone through Pat Shermer and then Joe Judge, who had 2 play callers in Jason Garrett and Freddie Kitchens. And so, do they want to go down that road again, where they're firing the coach and changing the offense after year 1 of the rookie quarterback? At this point, given what was said about Daboll after the game, it's just hard to imagine any scenario in which even his quarterback molding reputation, uh, given the reality they are going to draft a quarterback high, you would think, it's hard to imagine a scenario in which he's back. Now, if they do start clean, would John Mara give a green light to this new regime to not draft a quarterback? Now, 2026 is supposedly not a great quarterback draft either. Now it's very early, obviously, but could they go with a bridge quarterback like Justin Fields? Again, you've invested a lot of money in guys like Andrew Thomas, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns. These are win now moves, and so I do think you ought to try to draft a quarterback high. I know there's no sure thing between Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, but I think that's the likeliest route that they're going to go. And yeah, it's hard to imagine Brian Daboll being back after everything that unfolded yesterday, and really everything that's unfolded over the last 2 weeks. And even as it pertains to Shane, these 2 weeks have included two just monstrous games by Saquon Barkley, which the optics are horrific with that. Now, did it make sense to let Saquon Barkley leave? Yes, in a vacuum, sure. But the problem with that is just how bad it's made Shane look. And the damage was done in 2022 when they decided to pay Daniel Jones $82 million instead of franchise tagging him for 32. That's it. And that's what they could have tagged him and then signed Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley got 26 million over 2 years from the Eagles. He didn't get like insane money. And now he is looking like an MVP, a legit MVP candidate. So yeah, that Sunday, yesterday, what could not have possibly gone worse for Brian Daboll, and then especially Joe Shane with what happened in Los Angeles with Saquon Barkley and the Eagles on Sunday night.
I wonder how many times did Shane wish that Barkley on one of those long runs trip up like Daniel Jones did when he faced the Eagles. I wonder how many he was like, please just fall in terms of that. But you brought up a good point in terms of trust. And do you trust Shane and do you trust Dable in helping the franchise? The question I have with you is, do you trust John Mara to find the right guy, to be able to find these right guys? Because you look at the last two picks, Dave Gettleman, and now you have Shane, and you see what's happened there. Do you trust Mara and his advisors, those close to him, to find the right person?
No, look, John Mara is 0 of 6 now on his post Tom Coughlin / post Jerry Reese hires among coaches and GMs. He whiffed on his 2 years, Ben McAdoo. Now, who looks like Vince Lombardi compared to the three guys who followed him. Then 2 years, Pat Shermer, done. 2 years, Joe Judge, done. Probably 3 years, Brian Daboll, done. Dave Gettleman wound up getting I guess 4 years from 2018 to 2021. And for as bad as he was, he's been better than Shane because, and that's a low bar, but look at the guys he drafted. He drafted Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas. He drafted, now Barkley at number 2 was a mistake, but he drafted, yes, of course, he drafted Daniel Jones, and he made a lot of other bad picks. Kadarius Toney did a lot of other. We could be here all day if we talk about the things he did wrong, but he delivered what are the best players in the team right now. Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, Xavier McKinney was a very good pick, and the Giants had an opportunity to keep him, and they didn't. Joe Shane didn't. So that was an excellent pick in the second round. So, but ultimately, yes, he whiffed on Dave Gettleman. So 0 of 4 right now, post Tom Coughlin / post Jerry Reese, and then you tag two more on, and it's 0 of 6. John Mara has done pretty much nothing right since this team won 2 Super Bowls at a 5-year span, 2007, 2011, 2012. It all starts falling off a cliff. And look, especially 2017 going forward. You look at the starts this team has had. 2017, they start 2-13. The next year it was 1-7. The next year, 2-11. The next year, 1-7. The next year in 2021, 2-6. Then they make the playoffs. Last year they start 2-8. This year they're 2-9. It's almost hard to wrap your head around some of those numbers. Not those are seasons that are not just over at that point, but they are just the worst team in the NFL level over at that point. And this has been going on now for 17 to 21, with a little reprieve in 2022, and now 2 years of it here. So yeah, John Mara has made just some horrific decisions and said some just impulsively foolish things, whether he's saying we're back after the team wins a wild card playoff game in 2022 in Minnesota. By the way, they're 8-20 in the regular season since then. Or whether he's giving an unprompted vote of confidence that no one asked him for or forced him to do, and said, we're not making changes during the season. I don't anticipate changes after the season. I want to be patient. They did that. He did that after the team got destroyed at home by the Eagles and Barkley, which made them 2-5. He's doing that at 2-5, and he just does this after, in August he had said he wants to see significant improvement. So which is it? Significant improvement or a vote of confidence at 2-5? I mean, and then it's only been a month and a day since that vote of confidence. They've lost 4 games, including the last 2 that are just absolute disasters. The locker room has tuned out the coach. And in any other situation, unless this owner had straight up if he had not said, I guarantee I won't fire these guys during the season, you could be looking at a situation where on Black Friday, it's a full house cleaning. But Mero would look absolutely ridiculous if he does something that he said he absolutely would not do. So I think that for whatever it's worth, these guys will get to finish the season, but um, then nothing is guaranteed for either of them at this point in terms of Daboll and Shane.
I don't know why when you said that, I just thought about a Godfather line, and a man in my position cannot afford to be made look ridiculous. And yeah, well, it's going to have to after they're letting them go. But you actually kind of answered the next question I was going to ask. But and I'm going to counter with this. You say you think they're going to let these guys finish the season. We've seen it in the college. I know college and the NFL, they're completely different in terms of that. Do you think it will be prudent for them to at least give somebody else on the staff the interim thing, fire Dable, and then that gives you a head start in terms of trying to find your GM and your coach, so that way you get in line, so that we can start your draft process and start searching for the guys you want and identify the pieces that you need ahead of those other teams that may wait until Black Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I guess Black Monday in that case, but
Oh, Black Monday. Yep. Sorry. Oh, I got shopping up
and
there. Sorry.
yeah. Uh, one of them is a great day for most of America. You get day off. The other one doesn't even register with most of America, I guess, unless you're an NFL head coach. But but shoot, I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. Like, I don't think they're gonna fire the guys during the season because Mara said what he said. He said he's not gonna do it. And I mean, think of how ridiculous he would look if at 2-5 he says, "Oh, I'm not gonna do it." I'm sorry, but if you're at 2-5, it's entirely possible that your team will be, you know, well, I guess 2-10 would have been on the table, or like have 3 wins or 4 wins at this point right after the Thanksgiving game. So, like, did he really think it was all of a sudden going to turn around just because he said he wasn't going to fire these guys in the season? I mean, the team was bad at that point. They had just gotten waxed by the Eagles. Everyone saw how bad they were. But I don't foresee a situation that they do that. And I don't know how much that would hold them back from getting a guy in terms of a coach or GM that they want. What would they have to sell? They would have a roster with some intriguing pieces. Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas when he's healthy, the number 1 or 2 pick, maybe, depending on how the rest of the season goes. This team could definitely finish 2-15. It has the look and the feel of that, which would be 2-15, 12 straight losses. If that happens, Daboll and Shane are both gone. And I mean, I would think you get the number 1 pick. At this point, there's 3 teams left that have 2 wins. Jacksonville, Giants, and the Raiders all have 2 wins, all 2-9. And that's it. So, they really sort of kind of do control their destiny in terms of the losing out thing. It would be the second worst season in the history of the franchise because they've had other 2-win seasons. Uh, all their other 2-win seasons have at least 1 tie. Another one in, I believe, 74 was a 2-12 season. So obviously 2-15 would be worse. They had a season. The worst season was a 1-loss season with 1 tie. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I think that you would have no choice but to fully clean house at that point. I don't know though if doing it now would help you get a head start. I understand the Jets did that because they're going with the search committee thing with Mike Tannenbaum, which is so weird having your former GM look for your next GM. But what a weird year all around, and what a weird past 8 days or so it's been for both of these teams, the Jets and the Giants. But um, yeah, no, so I think the job would be appealing, especially if you fully clean house, then yeah, you got a GM who can come in and is not going to inherit a hot seat coach. But would you want a coach to be inheriting a hot seat GM, if that makes sense? Like, do you keep Shane? And if you keep Shane, would that impact your ability to go get a a new coach, like the best possible candidate. Remember in 2021, one of the reasons why they fired Joe Judge, other than the fact that the locker room had tuned him out, was they knew they were going to fire Gettleman. So they have been in this situation before where they had these guys on different tracks, right? They had Gettleman in place and they hired Judge. And then at the end of what was clearly the end of Gettleman's time, they said, look, we're just going to start fresh because we don't want to put a hot seat coach in Judge into the lap of the new GM. That's going to affect our ability to get a GM that we really, really want. And that's why they go with Daboll and Shane, which is it's the right idea to start these guys on the same track. It just hasn't worked out.
Yeah, it's funny when you mentioned that whole thing about the gesture. It's like, yeah, how it's like asking your ex, "Hey, can you help me find a new person to date?" Yeah, that's not going to go over so well. So because that might everything thing like that's that I don't get that. But yeah, you're right. The only way there's always going to be somebody who wants a GM job because they're so limited around the league, and it seems like the next GM I think is probably going to be like a young guy, not a young guy, not so much a young guy, but another person looking to like head into that spot and look to prove themselves. I mean, a couple of names that I'm thinking of offhand: Lions assistant general manager Ray Agnew and Eagles assistant general manager Al Calaby. Those are two names I'm looking at because they both come from organizations that have shown that they've been able to build through the draft well and have something sustaining. You look at the Lions, what they've done in these last couple of years, and you look at the draft selections they've made and how they built that foundation up. And we all know what happens to the Eagles too. Those are two organizations you start to look for immediately in terms of that. So those are two guys I'm looking at, and they do. I think that's the best way to go and get somebody who's really hungry to change some things around there because this is going to be this. I think it's going to take about not even two. I think it's going to be 3 years before this team's competitive again. Which, if you're like you said, if you're Dexter Lawrence, you're like, why am I here? Why
Yeah.
I just want
Well,
to
that's
be here.
fair. I think that maybe I don't know, is that an argument maybe for going with a bridge quarterback and trying to win some games? But if either you have your guy or you don't. Like, I mean, Justin Fields is not winning a Super Bowl, right? Just like Daniel Jones wasn't. So either you have a guy who either is like Mahomes, the guy, or could be the guy, like you're a Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. At least there's the hope there. Having the guy who you know is not going to be the guy to lead you to the Super Bowl, and you're just spinning your wheels to go 7-10 or 8-9. Who cares? Who cares? And I know that the coach, whatever coach they want to have in, wants to win games, but there's the Giants have had so many of these hollow wins. Really, 2022 will be remembered as a hollow season, and they haven't had a lot of hollow wins because they haven't had a lot of wins, but um, you know, they really were not ultimately building towards something in 2022. They wound up getting very lucky, and they were not a good team. They were the 29th rated team by PFF that year, and they went 10-8-1 counting the playoffs. So what does that tell you? They were flawed. They got lucky. And so it wound up being deceiving for the fans, for the front office, with the moves that they made going forward off that year. And so it was tricked them into thinking they were closer than they actually were. And so yeah, I think if you're going to have some growing pains. Well, you definitely will when you bring in a rookie quarterback, even if he's a high draft pick. It's pretty uncommon for someone like CJ Stroud to do what he's done. So yeah, that's and then of course, as you mentioned, the guys who they could bring in for the GM job. The name obviously out there, Belichick will be out there until he's not out there, and I think Dallas and Jacksonville make much more sense for him than the Giants. He can win in Dallas. He won't have full power. He would have full power in Jacksonville, and he'd at least have a quarterback in Lawrence who maybe there's, the bloom has come off the rose a little bit there, but um, I think either of those situations would be more preferable to him. The Giants bring nostalgia for him, of course. Would he get full control? Maybe. So maybe they go and do that, but would he want it? Would he want the job? Because he's old, obviously, and he wants another ring, and he wants to break the Don Shula overall wins record, the regular season wins record. He's close. Does he think he can do any of those things with the Giants? Get the Shula records, get the ring. If he doesn't, then why would he come? Why would he do it? I mean, just for nostalgia? I don't see it. So the guys that they potentially would hire, you're talking about, young offensive minded guys, which, Daboll wasn't super young when they got him, but they're going to go probably in that mold again. Bobby Slowick from the Texans, or someone like that, right? Just run down the list of Ben Johnson from the Lions, maybe. I mean, he's going to be a super sought after candidate. Or do you go with a Mike Vrabel? look, John Gruden, I don't think so. I don't see it. But Mike Vrabel, experienced coach, obviously defensive minded guy. Um, you know, it would be interesting to see if he would keep Shane Bowen, who was his defensive coordinator in Tennessee. Not that the Giants' defense has been great this year. They couldn't tackle to save their lives against the Bucks, but Vrabel will be a hot candidate. He'd obviously have to find an offensive mind who could mold the new quarterback, but he's clearly been a leader in terms of winning, a proven winner as a head coach. Which he would not be a retread per se, I guess technically. They did hire a guy like that in Pat Shermer, but Shermer had not won at all. It was a terrible hire. Vrabel, at least you can sell as a guy who has head coaching experience and winning head coaching experience, albeit not an offensive minded guy, as Shermer was. And look, Shermer's pretty good offensive mind. Look what he's doing at Colorado with Deion Sanders. I mean, he'll never be an NFL head coach again, but I think there's a lot to be said for, he does have merits in that regard. I think the Giants were just blinded by the offensive minded stuff and the head coaching experience, and maybe they didn't check his win loss record as a head coach, but anyway, so that's sort of where I potentially see them going head coach wise.
Yeah, Vrabel to me makes the most sense for in the future, just because I think this team needs to get back to. I know the trend is offense, but the way Vrabel, the way about him, I think he still keep that the heart of what this team excels at, in my opinion, is defensively, and then you just make sure you get a head coach type guy that coach your offense. I think they'll be back in business a lot sooner than later in terms of that. I just think Belichick. I think he want if the field is level, I think everything Jacksonville will be a better spot. Only I leave the Cowboys out. The Cowboys will probably give them the best chance to immediately win because you still have Dak Prescott, you still got CeeDee Lamb, you still have, well, for now, you don't know if Michael Parks coming back, but I think they give you the best chance to win. I don't know if Bill Parcells is kind of like, listen, I dealt with Jerry. He's going to want to do this and this. He's going to, even though he says he's going to give full control, he's going to meddle left and right. So that's why I'm saying that one too. And then also, Belichick lives he lives in Florida. It's not too far away from him. And he has that relationship already with Shad Khan and Tony Khan with having to talk to him. I mean, they asked him about Doug Marrone. He gave the stamp of approval for that too. So I think he wants him there. And then Vrabel, you hope Vrabel works out. And I don't know why. I mean, I think Fields goes out west to like say like the Raiders or something like that. I think we're setting up for, and it's going to hold your nose, but Andy Dalton starter, and then like Cam Ward, and maybe as your as your developmental guy that's taking over a few years later. It's going to be rough. It's
Yeah.
certainly going to be a rough stretch there. Now, Darryl, we do have a game to talk about somehow. On Thanksgiving, the Giants are traveling down to Dallas. Is there anything even to take away from this game? I know it's going to be one. In the weird thing is, okay, lose, but then they got the Cowboys who messed up the tank by actually winning last yesterday against the Commanders in one of the weirdest games I've ever seen. So, What are you looking for in this game, or what do you think there should be some takeaways from this?
Yeah, I mean, look, the losing thing would help their draft position. It's that simple. It would move Brian Daboll one step closer to getting fired. I mean, that's the reality. Like, I mean, he clearly needs to win a game or at least have a better effort than they delivered against the Bucks. I mean, the Bucks was the first of three straight winnable. I mean, you go back to the Panthers was a winnable game. Bucks winnable, Cowboys winnable against Cooper Rush, of course, and then they host the Saints, and those are all winnable games. These are games that when John Mara gave that 2-5 vote of confidence, it came with the obvious caveat that Dable had to win some winnable games and keep the locker room together. He has not done either, and so that's why he very well could get fired. And so they're 0-2 in this 4 game stretch of winnable games. And yeah, the Cowboys have been awful this year, but their defense is getting some really important pieces back, and that could be a problem for a guy like Tommy DeVito, for Tommy DeVito specifically, who takes sacks at an insane rate. I mean, he was sacked on 17% of his dropbacks last year, which is seemingly like it's almost impossible to do. Um, so yeah, they're going to start him. He got banged up a little bit at the end of the game against the Bucks. But it's a short week. They I guess they could go to Drew Lock quickly, but this is why, like, when you committed to Tommy DeVito for one game, you really did it for two because it's a short week. He's not capable. He's not. He's not an NFL starting quarterback. I'm sorry. I'm not. Why am I sorry? But would I have to apologize? He's not. He's not. That's just the reality of it. He's ceiling as a backup. He's a plucky player. But yeah. So Brian Daboll needs his team to look like they're actually trying out there, and um to not basically destroy him in the locker room after the game. And they can't not have a repeat of what happened against the Bucks. And because if they do, that definitely opens the door to an in-season firing, regardless of what Mara said. And no, I don't think they're going to win. I don't. I mean, they couldn't possibly have a worse effort than they did, and a worse showing beatdown wise than they did against the Bucks. But it's on the table. Everything is on the table. Like, again, this team has a look and feel of a team that could go 2-15 and close with 12 straight losses. That's my big takeaway from yesterday. What else could anyone think based on what was presented in front of your eyes yesterday and into your ears with what these guys said in the locker room afterwards? So, yeah, I it is an enormous challenge for Tommy DeVito to go. Tommy DeVito, Micah Parsons, come on, and then this Giants line and Jermaine Illumina, their left tackle's banged up. They don't have any answers on their line in terms of being able to stop a dominant pass rusher right now. So I think it could be very ugly for the Giants, even though on paper, against the Cooper Rush led Cowboys team that's been bad, obviously, and has been decimated by injuries. Um, on paper, you'd think, oh, winnable game. The reality of it is not so much.
Yeah, it's rough. Well, at least the tryptophan from the turkey should ease up some of the pain from having to watch this tape. Because I think it might be some ugly football as we've seen what from both of these teams we saw from this week. So, but Darryl, happy Thanksgiving, man. Hope everything goes well for you. Enjoy it, and make sure to read Daryl's coverage and him and Ryan Novozinski when they'll be covering Thursday afternoons game between the Giants and the Cowboys. They'll have everything going on. They'll be ready in case Dable is fired or other moves happen as well too. Make sure to check out their work for their news and their analysis. So for Daryl, I'm Chris. Everybody have a good one. See ya.